Welcome to No Remorse Woodworking. Here in Denmark we have a long tradition of making ornaments for Christmas. We usually make them out of paper, and as you can see here, one of them is a small heart. It's actually a small basket that you can put sweets and candy inside and hang on the tree. A couple of years ago I tried my hand at making something similar but out of wood. I only made a handful and I've been using them as small gifts. This is actually the last one I have left. They never really sparked much interest until a couple of weeks ago when I used it as a decoration simply to fill the picture. Since then I've hardly been able to keep up with the demand, and I thought I might as well show you how I make them. Welcome to No Remorse Woodworking, where I use reclaimed wood for various projects. Where I work, we discard a lot of wood every day. I think it's a shame to let all of it go to waste, so I've asked permission to take home the pieces I want. This allows me to be selective, but it still means taking pallets apart and removing a lot of nails before I can start using the wood for my projects. The first batch of 19 I made from a piece that I had left over from when I made the other ones earlier. And they sold so fast, I had to make a lot more, and I didn't really think to shoot video. I did take some pictures. I've since shot some video clips and I've tried to put them together as best I could. There's a slight discontinuation, but as always, I start with planing some wood. And although I don't show it here, I did plane both some pine and some red wood. I don't know the red species. I cut the wood into thin strips, which I then planed on all four sides to make all four sides smooth and to make them exactly square and of the same size. And I could then prepare to glue them up. It's straightforward once you've tried it. I do remember the first time I made such a block, I really had to think what I was doing and be very careful about it. You may notice that I swapped two sets around. It's because I had a defect in one of them and didn't want it on the outside. The really difficult part is the clamping. You see that I clamp from two sides, and that's to keep the whole block together and make the outsides as flat as I can. And then it's just a question of letting the glue set. It usually takes overnight. And then it's a question of gluing on pieces for what I'd like to call the ears. Here I take advantage of the grain direction of the pine. I couldn't really do that on the red wood, but as you can see, it does make a nice contrast with the grain direction, grain orientation. And then it's over to the bandsaw to start cutting slices, a bit like cutting salami. But I do take full advantage of having made a sled for my bandsaw, a cross-cutting sled. That's the word I was missing, sorry. I usually cut 4 or 5 slices in a row and then move them somewhere else, just to avoid dropping them on the floor. And just for fun, here is a close-up of cutting through the block, making another slice. And here is a cut from my perspective. I actually did look at my screen to see where I was cutting. And from this angle, I think you can really see the advantage of the cross-cutting sled on the bandsaw. It allows me to use a stop block. It keeps my hands and fingers away from the blade, and it still gives me full control of what I'm doing, what I'm cutting. At this point in time that I received a text message asking me if I could make another 10. So I simply had to continue, which of course I did. And then it was time to start cutting them into heart shapes. Initially, I did every single one on its own, but later I took to doing them in batches of 5. It takes about the same time, but it does give me 5 pieces that are relatively alike, relatively similar, because I cut them at the same time. As you can see, it's not that much more difficult to cut 5 at a time, but it does require a bit more care and precision, and it takes about the same time as cutting 5 individually. And then it's over to the belt and disc sander to smooth out the edges and remove any saw marks, etc. It doesn't take very much visually. And by the time I had finished all 30, they had all sold. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please leave a like and subscribe to get notification when I upload new videos. Thank you very much. And yes, I did make a small box to store them in just for fun.